Hello and welcome back, and that is right, today we are revisiting the subject of Plex Media Server, and today we are looking at the TVS-h874T. This is the new 8-bit Thunderbolt NAS. Now I say new, I don't know when you're watching this. Right now it is the tail end of November 2023, but this is a NAS that's actually kind of existed for about a year. The Thunderbolt version of this device is the Thunderbolt 4 version, arrived at the tail end of 2023, but at the end of 2022, the non-Thunderbolt version was already out there running on the same CPU. Now in the year since this system arrived, even though it's arrived with the same i7 12-core, 20-thread, 12th-gen processor, you know, the software has seen tweaks and upgrades, and we're running this on QUTS, so I thought it was worth revisiting the subject of Plex. And in this video we're going to be looking at the performance of 720p, 1080p, 4K and 8K multimedia to see how well it handles it. But before we go further, a few disclaimers. Number one, we are going to be utilising the web browser at times in this because I want to go for unfettered raw access, but particularly with the 8K stuff and trying to play some applications without limitations of compression techniques such as HEVC, I will be using the browser application as well. Now, as good as that is going to be to get some kind of raw, unfettered access to some of the multimedia in 4K and 8K and see how well the system handles it, it's worth highlighting this is still a laptop that is not only going to be processing all of that in the web browser or client sometimes, but we're using OBS, as you can see here on screen. And as you can see from the task manager here, even when we've not even played anything right now, my Windows machine is already using a decent amount of hardware resources for OBS and the web browser. And when we start using the denser multimedia 8K in particular, there is going to be limitations where the thing I'm recording on is going to be the bottleneck, and when that happens I will let you know. But we will be monitoring both the NAS performance and Plex performance throughout the course of this video on the right hand side of the screen, and we'll be accessing the multimedia live on the left hand side to see how things bear up. But do check out that video of the TVS-h874, no doubt linked on the right hand side of the screen, to see even more performance of multi-user access as well. The only other thing I'm going to touch on is the fact that right now, even though this system can be accessed over the local area network, I am technically accessing this via the Thunderbolt connection here. I could, if I wanted to, have connected via the local area network or remotely, but my concern was that if I did that, when it came to playing some of the denser multimedia, such as if I chose to go ahead and play the 8K media, the 8K media potentially might oversaturate the network connection. So just to make sure that we weren't going to be bottlenecked, I wanted to make sure that some of this denser multimedia with particularly high bit rates could be accessed without any bandwidth restriction. So I went ahead and connected to this device via Thunderbolt. But let's crack on with the tests. Actually, I should have mentioned earlier on, because I'm using a Thunderbolt connection in relative close proximity to the NAS. Consequently, you will hear the system in the background and some of those fans, but that might also help you if you're worried about this system in terms of noise generation when the system's in operation. Also, it looks like someone is hoovering outside my office, so I apologise if that comes through. But for now, let's do some testing. So here's the NAS here, and straight away, again, I'm going to play a 720p file, even though frankly it is absolutely redundant. We're just going to go ahead and play the Matrix movie really quickly. I'm just going to go ahead on the bottom of the screen there. We're still playing it. It's running in original quality there. It's absolutely fine. We're not going to see any problems. Of course we're not. We can go ahead and just play that file there. And do you know what? For the hell of it, why don't we just go ahead and play it at exactly the same time here on the client application. We'll start from the beginning there. We're just going to leave both files running there simultaneously, and again, absolutely fine. We've got a couple of versions. So next up, we'll go ahead and do some transcoding. So let's actually take this file here, and we're going to minimize one in the web browser to some ridiculous low quality. Maybe you're watching this on a train, maybe you're watching it remotely somewhere else on a mobile device and you don't need the high quality or your unlimited bandwidth. Let's go ahead and convert this file in two different locations to an incredibly small size there. And as you can see, if we move that just to that hand side of the screen, you can see that CPU utilization is pretty darn small. But do bear in mind, even though this is a 720p file, what we just conducted there is actually quite a big ask, because the conversion down to 240p actually requires quite a lot of work by the system in order to get that done. So next up, let's go for a 1080p file there. So for now, let's go into the 1080p test files here. for there. These are the jellyfish files. We can find out, let's get the detailed view. Let's go for something a pretty decent file here. We're going to go for a 1080p HEVC file here, so that's utilizing the more expressive but also license requiring compression technique. We're going to go ahead and play that file there, see what happens. And again, it is going to need to convert that file because there is no license for that in Chrome natively. But if we play that file here on the client application, we can go ahead, find it in the client application down here. Let's go for it and find it there. Go into the 1080p files, go in and play something pretty darn big. It's my own fault. I've managed to limit myself in the UI quite significantly. Let's go for the library there. Let's go for the drop down. Don't worry, we'll replay that other file in a moment and just play exactly that same file simultaneously. And as you can see, this one will be playing natively because we've got the license, but if we wish, we can go ahead and get that to convert the file down dramatically down to a comical 160p. And on the right hand side of the screen, you can see the NAS utilization still pretty darn low while that's going on between the two of them. So we'll compress, shut those down there. And another interesting fact I will highlight there is, do bear in mind again, we are connected via Thunderbolt, so we haven't got to worry too much about the bandwidth utilization either, because we've got so much space on the Thunderbolt connection to play with. Obviously, when you're using it, you're going to be using a local area network connection and a local IP. So, moving forward from that, let's carry on the subject of HD and go for something pretty darn hefty. We're going to go for a 100 megabits per second HEVC file here at 100 megabits. So we're going to come out there and zoom out. Go ahead and play that file there, open that up. Again, this is a big task. It should be said, 100 megabit per second bitrate file is massive. And that is again where we're going to see bit rates and the size of that file meet against bandwidth consumption, as you can see there. And that is why we went ahead and went on the Thunderbolt connection, just to make sure that didn't limit our test. But once again, it's playing those files fine. We're converting and changing that file while simultaneously playing that natively. And again, if we choose, we can convert it down to something mad like 160p. Let's rewind that file there, maybe play a different scale of file while we're doing it there. Let's go back to the previous directory. Hell, let's play that one. As you can see, we're still able to throw all this at the system, and it's playing these files absolutely fine there. So next up, let's upgrade things and head into 4K territory. So we're going to 4K, and we'll do that 4K respectively on both of these handlers. Go into there, get our 4K files. These are 4K trailers, and the varying quality is detailed on each of them. So for now, let's go for something immediately beefy. This is the roast duck file here. This is an HEVC 60 megabits per second 4K file with a comically large bit rate. Let's pop that there on that side of the screen, and likewise get the same files up in the detailed view. So let's go ahead and play the 4K file here. Again, we are converting, therefore transcoding and changing those files down. As you can see, it's going to do it. It's getting ahead, the conversion's happening, and simultaneously we can play that file natively here, and it's still a beefy file being played here. And once again, while we leave those two to do their thing, on the right hand side of the screen, we can see the CPU utilization is still nothing to worry about. And indeed, we can make our way into the beyond the dashboard, and as you can see with the transcoder, we are set to make my CPU hurt. We can go into the advanced mode and find out if we can configure that, but unfortunately we can't, even with this new version of Plex that we're running here. But still, nonetheless, we are utilizing hardware transcoding built in with the integrated graphics on that Intel i7 CPU there. Lovely stuff. So let's come out of that file there, and we'll go for something even more egregious, even more aggressive, and this time we're going to scale up quite significantly to an 80 megabits per second, the Top Gun Maverick file here. This is an 80 megabits per second IMAX 4K H.264 file. So let's go ahead and play that on both of these simultaneously. Let's get that up. We've got the original quality on the right hand side, and on the left hand side we've got the conversion happening there in real time, playing back both of these files. Again, we've minimized the screen in error. Let's bring those back side by side, and while we're doing that, we can also go back to the dashboard and see that although bandwidth consumption is very, very high, CPU utilization is still lovely and low. We're seeing some lovely stuff going on there, and indeed, why don't we go absolutely ballistic? Let's unpin that in error and go ahead and create ourselves a duplicate file of that and play ourselves another instance of that file. Let's have another version of it playing simultaneously. Oh, it's still playing there at the bottom. Let's come back, go in, play another file, go back, play ourselves something else a bit beefy. Let's go ahead with the beauty of Taiwan for the hell of it. So now we're going to play ourselves that other file there in the background while Top Gun is playing. It's just catching up while the beauty of Taiwan 4K file is playing, while simultaneously the file is still playing here on Top Gun Maverick in the client application. And all of that, the CPU is just at about 32%. If we zoom in there, we can see that we're really not tackling this, and what we're playing here is 3 very, very hefty files here simultaneously. All lovely stuff. So moving forward from there, why don't we make the hop over, sticking with 4K just a moment longer, and head back into our 4K test files. The reason being, in the 4K test file area, we have these 3 files here, 200 megabits per second files, and what we're interested in is the one at the bottom at 400 megabits per second. No one, I repeat, no one is using 400 megabit per second files. These are people that want to, analyze their GoPro footage with everything on max. These are people that are utilizing drones with insane file level qualities, expensive, 10, even close to the quadruple figure type data sets and gigabyte file sizes. This is where we're talking about. So for now, let's test these big files here. So we're going to go ahead and go for an HEVC 200 megabits per second 4K file, and simultaneously on the client application play exactly that same file. This is an enormous file. Now playing natively, absolutely fine. As you can see there, we're getting a slight dip, but that's really it. A lot of that is because I just accidentally pressed the pause button. There was a slight delay with conversion, but the delay there wasn't because the system wasn't powerful enough. It's just literally the process needs to be conducted. As you can see on the bottom of the screen, we're running that conversion there down at 720p, and we're still running the original file here, and our CPU is still living at a nice modest 15%, which is comical. So how about we take things up a notch? Now we're going to go for the 400 megabits per second file. We're going to play that one there, and again simultaneously while it does that there in the background, we're going to go ahead and conduct our 400 megabits per second file here. Now you may have heard the hard drive spin up there in the background very lightly. That's because at the moment while we're doing this, we're accessing data on the hard drives. We are not accessing data on the SSDs. Now that would have been a nice easy way to get around performance stats. I could have rigged the deck, so to speak, while we're running this enormous 400 megabits per second bitrate 4K file at HEVC. I could have rigged the deck and played the data if I chose to from the SSDs. This system is a 3-tier system right now. I've added 4 hard drives in a RAID 5. I've added 3 hard drives in a triple mirror. That is to say that the data can then be recovered twice. It's got 2 safety nets there, and finally I've got a Gen 4 M2 NVMe inside here that if I put the data on there, that SSD will crank out 6 to 7 gigabytes per second. So if I was really concerned with making sure these files played as fast as possible and as fluid and smoothly as possible, I could have rigged the deck, put the data on the PCIe NVMe, which will crank out 6.3 gigabytes per second. But I didn't do that. I made sure that the data that we are accessing resides on the hard drive array. It resides on the slowest areas of this system. Indeed, this is not being accessed from super fast SSDs, so this should give you some indication that even if you wanted to ramp things up even more, you can install M.2 NVMe's in this system and get even more throughput for this system, because sometimes a lot of these limitations are going to be based on the storage media you're pulling from and not the power of the system. So we're going to move into the 8K section of this video, and this is where we are going to hit those performance problems I mentioned earlier on with regards to my own client hardware here. Now this means that if you are going to be enjoying 8K media on your super fast modern TV or your client multimedia devices, you're not going to be recording it. You're not going to be running it in Chrome. You're not going to be running it on OBS. Consequently, you're not going to have the limitations I have. So even though sometimes you're going to see stuttering and a frame rate, bear in mind that that's nothing to do with the system. It is because I need to record this, and it would have been even worse, by the way, if I'd used an external capture card that doesn't output 8K. The only way I could do this was using OBS, but consequently that is going to undermine some of these results, sadly. So let's go into the library, let's go into the 8K files, let's go for the detailed view, and likewise we go into the client, we go into that 8K test there, we go in, full screen that there, go into library, get ourselves into detail mode, and run ourselves some of these tests. So straight away we're going to go for Helium Fire. This is a file that I have played previously in some of the reviews of this, as you can see with the tick there on screen, and straight away we've got two different kinds of result here on screen. On the left hand side of the screen, what we've got is the file currently being converted here on the system. We're seeing a small bump there in performance utilization, but on the right hand side of the screen here, this is the file being played natively on my PC, and as you can see, huge drop in frame rate. Indeed, this may be impacting how OBS is recording, because the minute I go into my task manager, look at that utilization of memory and my graphics card going bananas to try and stay on top of this. So it may well be that you're seeing even worse than I am. But I'll tell you right now, if I wasn't recording, this would capture this, and although the conversion might not make it through smoothly, definitely the 8K playback on a native client tool would be fine. We are looking at an 8K Plex NAS. Now if we come out of that file there and try something else, because that was one of the heavier files of the selection, and we go for something perhaps a fraction lighter, we can go for the Japan 8K file here. Japan 8K, if we play that here in the background, we can see immediately in the client app it plays. But of course, the inevitable drop in frame rate while we're trying to record these, and the inevitable maxing out of my graphics card built into this laptop. I think it is a 350 or a 360 built into this system. I'll have to double check. But there on the left, we've got the conversion happening, we've got the utilization, and it really is just the limitations of the client hardware that is stopping this system handling these files. Because look at there on the right hand side, the CPU utilization, it's absolutely breezing it, playing these two files simultaneously there. So let's try a few more 8K files here, and next up we're going to go for Patagonia 8K. This is 30 frames per second, 7600 res file there. And again, do you know what? We're not even going to play the same file this time. We're going to go straight into Rio on the right hand side of the screen, because right now this is doing an absolute stellar job given the circumstances of my client hardware being the only limitation for Plex to output these 8K files for us here. And of course it's taking time for the conversion, because we're converting an 8K file down to 720p, but it is still going to get the job done. And once again, if it wasn't for the limitations of my recording software, you would see great results here overall. And we're going to end just on one file to tail out the last of this video. We're going to look at what we've got, and we're going to go for World 8K. This file here at the bottom is, I believe, my beefiest file. Although it's not the starkest resolution, it's an HDR HEVC 60 frames per second, 60 megabits per second MKV 8K file. It's the biggest file I've got, I believe. So let's go ahead and play World 8K. Play that there on either side of the screen. Open it up, and once again I hope OBS is still functioning during this, but as you can see on the right, playing like it's playing, it's the frame rate drop. My internal GPU is having an absolute nightmare, with Plex utilizing 96% of its available resources, which leaves nothing for OBS to record upon. And then on top of that, on the left hand side of the screen, we are getting conversions lined up, and it will play that in just a moment. And if we move our client app over, we can see CPU utilization is still fine. So ultimately, between these two, I'm going to say right now, let's close that out there and minimize that. This NAS is definitely Plex 8K ready, but you will only be able to enjoy it if you are using 8K supported devices. In terms of 720p, 1080p and 4K, you saw multiple instances of not only us playing multiple files, but on top of that, while we were playing those files, this system in a breeze moment played the file, let's go into it there, my file down here, the 400 megabits per second 4K UHD HEVC 10-bit HDR 4K file. This is a file that is every 30 seconds of this file, digging in, we can see that that file, that 30-second file, every 30 seconds of that, let's come out of the trailers and we go into the Plex Media Server testing files here, 30 seconds of that footage is 1.4 gigabytes in size for 30 seconds of footage of that. That is an enormous file, and this NAS played that file twice simultaneously, with one being converted down to 720p. That is, quote unquote, hench. So there you go. That has been Plex testing of the QNAP TVS-h874T, a great NAS and an insanely OP NAS for those that are interested in true future proofing of Plex Media Server up to 8K and who knows what else. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you've enjoyed this. Let me know in the comments if you have. We'll be doing some comparison testing soon, and of course we've done full reviews of this device, performance testing, noise testing and more, all hopefully linked in the description already. But apart from that, thank you so much for watching. If you need any further assistance with your network attached storage setup, use the free advice section over on NAS Compares on the right hand side of every single page. If we open that up there, we can go straight into NAS Compares and just show you here on screen. On the right hand side of every page, you can get free advice if you choose, or you can go ahead and use the NAS Builder if you want to get a helping hand along the way to sort out the best NAS for your needs. You can use our NAS Configurator, you can use our hard drive finder, you can go ahead and join the NAS Compares Inner Circle via Ko-Fi or Patreon, where you can get expedited support, not just the free support I mentioned earlier on, or if you need further support, use our fast track inquiries, or you can hire me for a Zoom consultation to help you find the best solution for your needs. But apart from that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.